thank you very much for doing this.
It's my entire pleasure. I do mean that. Thank you.
And before we even specifically talk about compliance, I just wanted to ask, generally, do you remember looking back when you first tried acting, even if it was just for fun, you know, around the house or something, and then was there a moment after which you knew that this was what you wanted to do?
I do remember it. Yes, I do. I did the plays in school. Went to a Catholic school with lovely nuns, and they were. I have two who are nuns, two aunts.
Oh, wow.
Nuns, sorry. But in my family, it was not a thing, an option. It was a hobby, and my father loved the arts, everybody, but there would be no such thing. It was just unheard of. So, never entered my mind. I thought that was meant for the creatures that were, I don't know, from somewhere else, you know. Because it seemed too good to be, you couldn't.
Right.
So I was in pre-med for 4 years, which is a very grueling thing. Loved it in its way, because it will test your mettle for sure. But I took acting classes in college, and my acting teacher was one of the great ones, which is to say, based it on human behavior. And that's just the greatest thing to teach a young actor. Listen, doll, you've got it in there, and here's your text. It's about that. So, and then I thought, it's that? Meaning, you could step into the life of another.
Mm-hmm.
And it just meant doing the work and giving what you had to offer. And so that was a revelation. It sounds utterly dull.
No, but what's one of the interesting elements to me from preparing for this, I read that it was as much as you were enjoying it, you weren't totally sold until you heard from your roommate and a science professor, right?
Well, here, imagine this. Yes. Oh, that's completely true. So organic chemistry, which I have to say is among the greatest experiences of one's life. It'll bring you to your knees.
Right.
But my organic chemistry teacher was one of those wizards and lovely people who just said, relax, you're doing fine. What's the problem?
Right.
And then he would take me aside and say, now, doll, what are you doing here? What's the deal? And it wasn't so much grades, because you knock yourself silly and you get the A's, because you have to.
Right.
But he said, where's your heart, you know? Just one of those lovely human beings who looks that scared student in the eye and said, what's your life, honey? What's the problem here? Relax, all right. And my roommate, who to this day, she's just heaven, Maribeth Wally, she lost her brother. He died in our senior year.
Oh.
And my father had died the year before I went to college. I'm sorry, too much information.
No, not at all.
And so we both understood despair. And the other thing grief does to you, I believe, when it's so new, is to separate you a little. In a good way, in the sense that you realize, oh my God, life is so special.
Mm-hmm.
And it can go in a second.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of had when she lost her brother, we realized, oh my gosh, let's not waste time on, and she just looked at me and said, what are you doing? Go down the road in front of you. She's one of those wise and lovely people. And she just sort of flicked that switch for me. And I thought, okay, I'm doing that. So my poor mother, imagine, here's my mother with 7 children.
Oh my gosh.
Raising them alone.
Oh my God.
Not alone, we have family.
Right.
But the one kid who's going to be smart and go on and be a doctor. And I called her and she said, no, she couldn't even get the words out. And I remember my grandmother saying, she's gone now, but you know the ones who have such an influence. And she was a religious person in a very quiet and powerful way. And she said, well, you're not going to do that as a life, for your hobby, that's marvelous. And I just looked at her and I said, well, those are the gifts I was given.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and she said, she never turned back. Oh, you're absolutely right. Move on. Isn't that nice?
That is,
I didn't have to battle the.
Right.
So I auditioned and got in, and I just was beside myself.
And when we say audition, this would be for DePaul?
Yes, exactly. And I went to New York to do so.
Wow.
And they torture you for about 3 hours. You think you're going to go and do the monologue and get the heck out. Right. Oh no, stretching, I'm a cat. Whatever those things are. I'm kind of kidding.
This was in New York, even though DePaul's
in Chicago. Well, they travel because a lot of people can't get to.
Yeah.
I'm sure most of the competitive acting conservatories travel.
Yeah. Interesting. So you were there for a few years, right? And then stuck around in Chicago.
Yeah, that's a great place to get your bearings, because first of all, it's a lot of it, and it's right. It's like not street theater by any means, but the theaters are on. You know what I mean? They're like storefronts.
Steppenwolf, right, and all the different
things. Oh yes, Steppenwolf. Oh my gosh, I never worked there, but I tell you, I admire them tremendously, and do to this day. That's a real, very unusual ensemble where the talent is off the charts, and remains so, and the integrity. You know, I had a huge. I remember going to that theater and sitting, and a nightingale sang. You know Joan Allen?
Yeah.
Heaven.
Yeah.
And Laurie Metcalf playing a 90-year-old, and you'd have sworn that it was a 90-year-old. She's, well, what can one say? And at intermission, I just thought, can we just skip the intermission? Don't anyone move. That they're so good. But anyway, they had their thing, but there's a lot of opportunity. You know, you can walk in the door and just do what you can do, and you don't have to join the union. That's huge. As a young actor, you need to go into the smaller venues and try it out and get your sea legs and so on. So yes. And
then what prompted the move to New York, which when it happened was, from everything I can tell, received really well. I mean, the certainly, I guess, Clarence Derwent. Is that a word? That's for best newcomer is a pretty big deal.
Debut on Broadway.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So tell me about you. What made you decide to make the move, and then it was seamless?
Oh God, no such thing. Well, I mean, you know, isn't it funny? I suppose you can carry this through your life, but you know how when you're, well, for an actor, you have to have. You can't let it be anyone else's choice to say, "No, honey, are you sure?" You have to have that reserve of, it doesn't matter what, I will be doing this. We moved. First of all, I could feel. It's like you have to leave your hometown. And you just know you have to go. And I thought to myself, I'm going to be cast. I want to play Abigail in The Crucible. I want to play the girl who gets kissed, and it's not going to happen here. I was perceived in a different way, and plus I think I was possibly one step from a clinic. You come out of a conservatory, and you have all you can do. Do you know? I mean that. You're just like, are you serious? Now I have to begin? And then, okay, here's the real deal. My husband grew up in Manhattan, and when he was 18, he put his name on a list at Penn South, which is a group of buildings built by the Ladies' Union Garment Workers, bless them. He put his name on a list, and 14 years later, for an apartment, came up.
Wow.
And it was just at the time we were ready to. So and the rent was like $350.
That's pretty amazing.
Do you know what I mean?
So you had to do it.
So, and plus everything just was right. But we didn't have representation. Kind of a big deal.
So he's also
my husband's an actor. He's wonderful. And he's also the chair of an acting conservatory. You know Cap 21, do you know it?
I'm not that.
No, you will eventually.
Yes,
as your life in New York picks up. But so we moved, but I remember thinking, again, it's that kind of, no one will say no, I can't have it that way, I have to do it another. And I remember saying, okay, here's the deal, I'm going to have an agent in 3 months, and I'm going to have a job in 5. I don't know why I picked that. It's funny, right? I mean, and so then I would go, oh God, this is slightly mortifying, but I would go to Broadway, to the theaters, and I would stand outside, and I would literally go like this, I will be working there. Just to get the courage, you know. And then you get on the lines at 6 a.m. and you go to the auditions. And I had a terrible thing with nerves, you know. All actors do. But I would kind of, I'm sure more than one person wondered if I was a special needs. I don't even mean that I have 2 special needs children. I don't mean that, you know, it's slightly irreverent. But thought, I wonder if she's serious. Just courage. So it took. And I had my agent in 3 months, and she's heaven on earth. She's now my manager.
Still with her?
Oh, she's just.
And this would have been 19 years ago.
So this would have. Yeah. Oh my God.
Amazing.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. And then I had my first job, which was the most extraordinary experience ever. A play called Paper Gramophone at Hartford Stage, and it was with a Russian director who spoke no English. Now the Russians get it.
Yeah.
Because to the Russians, it's a way of life. There is nothing, well, in the evening I do a play, or in the daytime I rehearse. It is your whole life.
Stanislavski and all that.
I'm telling you, it's the brilliance of it. It's extraordinary. I knew this from taking ballet. Then I had a Russian prima ballerina, that's a whole word, and I remember her calling my mother saying, now she has pimples, what are you feeding her? What's her mother saying, what, is this the ballet teacher? But he would say to us, we would split the day in half, and he'd say, it is with go now for dinner, eat a light meal and rest, sleep and come back at. And then he would say at the end of rehearsal, it is with sadness that we part. It was dead serious. The reverence in it. I'll never get over it, truly. And when we moved from the rehearsal into the theater, I never could step back in that rehearsal room. It was like a sacred... I'd never been that strongly... And of course, we all drank vodka at night. The actors, we were terrified. Because could we do the work? Do you know what I mean? He was requiring nothing but the real thing.
Yep.
Oh, God, so lucky.
Well, I think one of the things that actors seem to like about New York is that really all three mediums are accessible here. I guess there's more than three, but the three big ones, theater, film, TV.
Absolutely.
And it's just amazing how in less than 20 years of being here, you have just made a mark in each of them. And I wonder if you can talk about what, I mean, I could point out some of the credits that jumped out to me as amazing and as I look back, but for you, what have been, if you could cite one or two from each of those, which you, having worked so extensively in all of them, which ones have meant the most to you to be a part of over that time?
Well, I'll do it in just generalities,
sure,
if I may.
Sure.
I mean, there are some specifics too.
Of course.
In Chicago, it's the Shaw roles in the theater. Beyond. He's a terrific teacher, Shaw, because you learn to trust the language, to trust your own intelligence, to trust his. They're delicious. Do you know them? I mean, you know of them or know them, but perhaps not in a while. So that was a tremendous experience. I loved it so. Theater here, I did play in The Crucible, which is heaven. Abigail.
You got to do it, yeah.
Oh my God, she was 17, imagine. I was not 17. Working in Joe Brancato's theater, an hour and a half out of the city. Tremendous roles that just... The Wool Gatherer. Do you know that? Master Simone, gorgeous two-hander. That's the great thing. Theater, you just get strong. You have to. Courage. No other choice. Broadway. Oh, heaven. You know? That's one thing I got to tell you. The dreams you have as a child, you know how sometimes you get to life and they don't match up? This matches and then more.
Did.
It's just extraordinary and terrifying. The Seagull, working with such wonderful actors, and Ian Rickson, the director, was phenomenal.
And this is eight shows a week, right?
8 shows.
Oh my God.
That's a remarkable thing. But it does train you in every possible way for life and everything else. Because then you realize it has nothing to do with how you feel. It's that you know your job is to do this, and you will find a way to open up and get it done. And sure enough, you know. I teach Chekhov and Tennessee Williams to a group of young students.
Wow.
Heaven. And they don't know, of course. They've heard about Chekhov, and they read it and think, this is so boring.
Yeah.
But they don't want to admit that. But at any rate, that's digressing.
And then, I mean, just not to put words in your mouth, but I mean, to
Let's
me, it's... no, but from the TV side of things, how many people have worked on so many great shows? I mean, every one of the Law and Orders, right? Which is probably a trivia question. I don't think too many other people have...
Well, you know, New Yorkers, I mean, my God, New York actors, that's how we... They were wonderful, and a great group of people. Actors, intelligent, and really good roles. I loved that. One in particular called Compassion, about the doctor who treats children for cancer, and of course many die. And she had her sister who died of cancer, and she never quite got through that.
Yeah.
So she brought that into personal. Who's that wonderful Kubler-Ross? You know her?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
She talks about
the stages of grief, right?
And she also talks about children, because she worked for a while, trauma with children.
Yeah.
She's remarkable. But she said, as long as you settle your private matters and grief, you can do it all the time. You can find a way. But this character hadn't.
Never did it, yeah.
Great story. Loved it.
And just all this, I mean, so many great shows that from NYPD Blue to House to all these.
Oh my gosh! First of all, and doing a series, I only did one, Nothing Sacred. That was heaven.
To have a regular sort of.
Oh my gosh! And the
routine.
people, David Manson, Bill Kane, all those people, just heaven. You know, and the cast was so good. That I loved. That's a great, because you can relax a little
Yeah, you know what
You
your
know what I mean?
life's
It's not going to
gonna
end
be.
in 10 minutes. Well, 12 minutes.
Right,
Because it only lasted a
Right.
season. NYPD Blue, you mentioned.
Yeah.
Okay, so that to me was a remarkable television show. I think
Mhm.
will always stand out
Absolutely.
as a phenomenal. And David Milch, always wanted to meet him. And this is how it goes there. I should say went.
Yeah.
You go in and you read through, rehearse slightly, block for camera, and it isn't until you're going to shoot, which is now in the afternoon, that Milch comes in. And he wasn't the director, he's the producer.
Yeah.
But he becomes everything. And he just comes in and watches the final run through, and then you shoot. And in between rehearsing and at lunch, I went into the trailer, sobbed, called my husband and said, I don't think I can do this. This is a woman racked with grief. Her husband had been murdered, and a police officer, and he had been having an affair, and he was found with the woman in the car. And this is a proud wife who never knew it was happening, who has to save face of her husband, and so on. And I just called and I said, I just, because it's sort of like a boys' club there, you know what I mean? You suddenly, I don't know, depending on one's upbringing, all girls Catholic school, do you know what I'm saying? You never quite get them. I have to say that. But at any rate, I'm old enough to get over that.
Right.
So I went in, and he said, well, you have to, kind of, don't you?
Yeah.
So, and I went in, and David Milch is amazing. What he does for actors, here's how you free an actor. You give them the correct action. I'm completely serious. Once you know what you're doing, what you want, it's not about how you feel or blah, blah. It's what am I doing? And he named it for me. And I cannot tell you what, he finally just said, here's what she's doing. She's protecting his honor. Now, it sounds like the simplest phrase in the world, right? But it put everything in place. And I just shot it, went home, sat in the car, and wept from sheer gratitude.
Wow, that worked out.
That I had the time with him.
Yeah. And this was before David Milch was fully David Milch. I mean, it's only grown over the years, the sort of the aura.
He likes actors, therefore, because plenty don't, there are good enough reasons for that. But he respects actors too, and so he knows what's needed. And I just will never forget that. It was such it was wonderful.
And just the final...
Freaks and Geeks wasn't half bad either.
No, that's actually, I should ask if you have anything to...
Oh my gosh.
Special memory.
Oh, I loved.
Yeah.
Loved. Yeah. You walk in, first of all, they're all 12. They look 12. This was white.
Right.
And appetite. They're all... you go, wait a minute now. Have you graduated from high school? Right. What's going on here? All so smart and so funny. And we had a blast. I mean, it was just ridiculous. I don't know. Did you ever see those episodes?
I did. It's been a few years, but
Cookie,
I did.
Cookie running out with the high heels. I think I weighed 2 pounds then. It's such a nice period of my life. But I loved them.
And then just the final pre-compliance specific stuff is there were all these great film appearances over the years where you just in a lot of memorable movies, whether it's Philadelphia or Lorenzo's Oil or Garden State or on and on and on. And so for you. I mean, I guess I'd be most curious probably about Philadelphia, but any others that most...
Philadelphia was a terrific set. Yeah. Bobby Kessel just died. Did you know? Bobby played the father.
I did not know.
It's Jonathan, such a great man. Oh, priest, as you know. Loved him. He baptized my first 2 children.
Oh, my goodness.
He's
wow.
He's a dear person. Yes. Demi's great. Demi's great for a lot of reasons, one of which is that he loves film, and so therefore, and he trusts himself. He's like a boy. He's like a kid.
Right.
And so therefore, he never has to dominate. He just... And at one given time, imagine it's Joanne Woodward, Tom Hanks, Denzel. Where do you look? And Tom Hanks is like he would seem. Well, you probably have met him. I think he's such a nice man.
Yeah.
He was like a brother, just kind and person, lovely, lovely. I think I cried that whole time. Something happens, isn't it funny? When you don't finish the grieving, we just talked about this.
Yeah.
When my father died, it was so catastrophic, sort of, in our family. Many people suffer much earlier than that, God knows. That you don't quite deal with it. And then I jumped into pre-med and just said, okay, I'll have to do it. So here we are doing this about this brother dying and going to the hospital bed, And Demi, I remember this is hilarious. He would say, "What is the matter today?" Not because the sister,
right.
you know, you can't solve the whole performance. You got to have a few layers there, levels, right? So we had to go and say goodbye at the bed.
Right.
So I'd say, "Just don't cry, don't cry," because it's the brother who cries, and that's what's so moving about that scene. He tries to hug his brother, and he just collapses. Well, so I can't do that, right? So I go in, I'm trying to cry.
And I can't help
And he goes, "Can I just?"
That's really funny.
I said, "I'm so sorry. I'm trying really hard." And he said, "Okay, here's what you do." And he was just so delicious. He gave me just think about this. I said, "Okay, absolutely." You know, that's a great set and a beautiful. And the whole set came together because Tom Hanks and what he went through in that film. That was a great experience. And my little boy was 6 months old then. My little baby.
Oh my goodness.
So I had him with me, and he's 20 now.
What? Where did time go?
Did I say? Yeah, he's 20 years old.
So,
but great experience. Garden State loved. Zach Braff, another 20-year-old. No, I think he's 28.
Yeah.
Knew exactly what he was doing. Was completely clear on what he wanted.
Right.
Really lovely guy.
Yeah.
That whole set. And we had 10 minutes and $10. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot of... That's a great thing, you know. Would love to be paid a lot to do film. However, these small films, you just get down to business.
That's my sense, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have... What else are you going to... It's about the work and get it done. That's what's so lucky about compliance. Are we there yet?
We'll come back. We'll get there in a second.
Okay, I'm listening.
No, so I guess, to me, when you started out, when you at Holy Cross with this decision, this is what you're going to do, what for you was the barometer of success? What would tell you that you were doing the right thing?
Oh, it's very earnest. Do you know how it is? Well, I'm sure there are people who come straight out of the gate saying, "I'm going to be a star."
Right.
But I grew up an Irish Catholic, and don't you dare draw attention to yourself, young lady.
Right.
This is not about you.
Right.
If you're having it, you should want everyone else.
Have their shot.
You know, because one of 7 too.
Right. Yeah.
You know, you realize, okay, calm yourself down. Not about you. So it would be to work in the theater. Now, when you first do television and film, it's the oddest thing in the world. First of all, your head is like, "What is that thing watching me?" You don't realize, oh, that's the best friend you're ever going to have.
Right.
Don't worry about it. Not about judgment. It's about awareness.
Right.
Whatever. But that takes a while. So my goal was theater, working in the theater, and that was it.
And so, I mean, clearly you have always worked very steadily and successfully. Was there ever a part of you, though, that says, you know, prior to compliance, give me a bigger part, give me a chance to show you what I can do? Not that, I mean, I'm sure there were a few over the years, but was that is that frustrating that, you know, for whatever reasons people are, you know, sometimes, like, in a way you become a specialist in one type of, you know, a go-to person for this kind of performance?
Oh, no, I was very interested in...
Meteor.
To be perfectly honest, here we are in acting school. Okay, so we get out of acting school.
Yeah.
And it's competitive.
Yeah.
Well, acting school is like, I say to the students now, darlings, if you can get through this, let me tell you. First of all, ensemble.
Right.
You don't have to knock anybody out to get the job done.
Right.
Yours will be there. There is enough work for you. You know. But we had a few. Elizabeth, you know Elizabeth Perkins.
Sure.
She's lovely.
Yeah.
Was in my classmate. Kevin Anderson.
Yeah.
Love, terrific people, wonderful actors. And she's a very pretty girl. Not girl. She was, you know, woman.
Right.
Full-grown adult. But has all going on. Humor, just the whole thing. And I remember going to work as a waitress. And I was in Chicago. And I looked over and there was a theater, and it was a premiere, because there were a lot of limousines things, about last night. And there's Elizabeth getting out of a limousine. I thought, I am going to work in a restaurant. And this actress, I went home and I just about... There were periods where I would just sob for a long period of time and think, I will go straight mad if I can't shift this.
And when you say shift this, you mean in what way?
More in the limelight? Yeah. Sorry, how does one say?
No, that
sounds so
that's
self-involved, doesn't it?
I appreciate honesty. I think that's really... Most people would say, I want a shot.
Oh, I wanted to be a star, no question. I thought, what? And I would I would just sit there and think, what am I going to do? I'll go mad.
Yeah.
And then, again, true, the guilt one feels, no, you should.
Right.
You know, and I know I was so fortunate. I worked with the most wonderful people,
Right.
but it certainly eats at you.
And is there, you know, the it's almost cliche at this point, but they say that it doesn't get easier as you get older as an actress. Not that you're at all older, but I'm just saying as time goes by, you know, when you're not 25 and you know, sort of a sex object anymore, it's harder and harder and harder. We hear this all the time. Over 40, there's no good roles anymore. It's clearly not the case, but is that something that, you know, is in the back of your mind at all, that it's
No, not in one,
yeah.
not even for a second. Because first of all, that wasn't who I. They didn't say to me, "Where's that gorgeous girl? That one with the figure, with the." Hey, I like my looks are fine,
Yeah.
but you know what I'm saying. They're not going to right. So I was never. That was not where I did not value myself in that way,
Right.
and I didn't get the impression anyone else
Right.
was either. I mean, no, whatever. But in the theater, it was wonderful to play those ingenues. You've got to get in there because there's that imagine that dream thing. Do you know what I mean? However, in one of these fits, I hesitate to say this, but it's the honest truth, of sobbing on the porch so no one would see me, sock in my mouth. And once you have children, you got to get a hold of yourself because you can't be weeping and wailing.
Right.
You got to take care of them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was really at a very low point. I thought, oh, what am I going to do? And something came over me. It was dead calm, rare for me. And the strongest feeling, it will be fine and it will be later. And I swear to you, I thought, okay, relax. And I laugh and say I was never in my 20s emotionally. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It just wasn't there.
Well, you probably had to also grow up a little sooner with the loss of your father.
Well, that's the thing. And then you stuff it all down, right? So you spend your 20s trying to get through, hoping you can hold on. Do you know what I mean? Well, everyone goes through their struggles in their 20s.
Right.
You're probably 10, 12, 15.
22.
22, you sweet thing. That's all right. You're going to have a great life. But yeah, so I thought, okay. And once I hit my 30s and I thought, oh my God, my youth is entirely over. What am I going to do? The chances are gone. You have to do it now. It has to happen by now. But then you pick your point of view about life, don't you, in the end? You say, this is how I choose to think about this. And I think that I never go through that thing about with women and when they're old. I don't know who... Men must say that. No, not you. But you know what I mean? I just
Right.
refuse to follow that train of thought. It's...
And there are plenty of exceptions.
Oh, there's great things. And they'll be written, the roles, you know? They'll come.
So now here you are, I guess, one day you get a script or a call that with... How do you first hear about compliance? And what was your...
Got a phone call.
Yeah.
An audition.
Yep.
Read the script. Thought, oh, here's what I thought. I read it and I said, well, this role has been cast, surely. It's so great a role. It's gone to a star. And this must be a backup, but hell, I'm fine. I'm happy to go in. Couldn't be more... Because that's the way you get to think. When the role is lovely and... So I went in, and Craig Zobel, have you had a chance to meet him?
Not yet, no.
Oh, he's the best. He's, first of all, well, he's a great writer. The script just, as soon as you read it, you just think, okay.
Definitely.
And he's a phenomenal director and the nicest man on the planet. Do you know that type?
Yeah.
Where, no ego. I mean, a solid ego. He's a talented man. But just kindness and collaboration, anyway. And that's what happened in the audition.
Do you remember what you auditioned? What scenes? Or...
Oh, well, he picked the one where, on the phone, the early scenes with the detective.
Yeah.
Okay, those we did. Primarily, that's what we did.
Right.
Because those are the really, I think, the trickier ones in the sense that you have to chart that well. You have to...
Yeah.
He charted it brilliantly, but you don't shoot in sequence all the time. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, that was going to be we'll come back to that.
Okay.
But yes, so you go in there, you do that scene. Did you feel it went well?
I thought it went really well, and we worked well together.
Yeah.
And I said something to him which I've never said to any director or anybody in the room, because it's producers and things. And I said, well, and here the issue were the dates. Blood from a Stone was going to run, and I said, well, you know, we don't start till 7 at night. Now, I've done enough films. You can't guarantee, especially in an independent picture, that you can get somebody out.
Yeah.
He's like, well, the dates were an issue. And I said, well, if you're interested in me, I'm interested in you.
Yep.
remember saying that, which I've never said. Usually, you know, which is such a waste of time, bowing and scraping. Polite and modest, but let's just not apologize for your very existence.
Right.
You know. So I left and went and did the play. And I remember checking in because I thought, well, I think that went well. I'm not hearing anything. And so I called my manager, no longer my manager, it's wonderful, Estelle Lasher, she's not. And she said, well, oh, that went away. They went with someone else. I said, oh, okay. And you do get used to letting go.
Yeah.
I mean, what are you going to do? In LA, when I was younger, when my little girl was born, I'll get right back to this.
Yeah, that's not true.
When I wouldn't get a role, this is in LA, I would weep and wail for everyone. Imagine. And finally, in the middle of a sob, I swear to God, I just went, and then I said, you have a choice here. You don't have to fall apart, miss. You really don't have to go to the mat with this.
Right.
And from then on, I just said, oh, thank God for that lesson. I don't know how it sunk into me, but I'm not, you know, not happening. So I just thought, oh, okay, well, I'm not going to get that. Then, the first scene in Blood from Stone, how's the battery?
That's good.
Right?
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Is brutal.
Yeah.
It's long, but it's with Ethan Hawke. He's cool to be on stage with, because the house could fall down, and he'll say, you know what, we'll just carry on. It's great. And I usually would come up after this long scene, brutal, and I would just lie down on the dressing room floor, happy as a clam. So I had a break. Phone rings, which I would never answer in the middle of a play. Yeah. You know, that's just gross or something.
Right.
But I saw that it was Estelle, my manager, and I picked it up. She said, you got compliance. I said, what? They changed the dates or something. Heaven. And David Gordon Green, you know David Gordon Green?
I know, yeah.
He apparently had seen Blood from a Stone. He's the one who mentioned.
It changed his mind.
Call her in. He was suggested that I go in.
Yeah.
She said to Craig, because he produced it.
Yeah.
Craig, why don't you have her come in? So grateful to him. At any rate, so then I knew I had it.
So had they just sort of decided, was your manager misinformed when she had said they had gone with somebody else, or how did it work out?
Do you know I never pursued that?
I'm just curious.
Didn't matter to me.
Yeah,
I said, that's mine, heck.
Yeah.
You know, I never do want to know who else is up, because then you become obsessed.
You're paranoid and whatever, yeah.
And you realize, oh, she's perfect. Of course she's getting it. Yeah.
So, one question that I had, I don't know if you would have done this before the audition, or maybe not at all, or at some point in between. Were you curious to see clips or try to contact the person that your character is based on? I mean, I believe it's one specific person, right?
Well,
or a composite?
It is a composite.
Okay.
You know this happened 70 times. Can you imagine that in 35 states?
Same perpetrator or different?
They think it was the same.
Yeah. Crazy.
Same person.
Sick guy.
10-year period. And you know he was. This will be off the record because if people haven't seen it.
Well, we'll say spoiler alert.
Complete spoiler alert. He did go to. They took him to trial. They found him.
But he got off, right? Didn't he not?
He was acquitted by jury of Spears because it was circumstantial. You know, the burden of proof, one hopes, should be high, and they couldn't meet it. But it all stopped after he.
Yeah, well, I hope so.
So they do think it was. You know,
I'm sure. Yeah.
But
were some of these people on talk shows or things talking about what they had to go through, or was there anything that you could seek out?
And I didn't pursue it prior to getting the role.
Yep.
But once I did get it for the audition, no, I just literally prepared the scenes and something. You know, this is what happens when you connect to a role. It's one of those lucky things where first of all, it was so well written, and secondly, I knew, gut level, this is a real life person. I don't mean live and in life. I mean he has written a human being.
Right.
And plus, this is the thing. They asked me this in France when we went to the Deauville Film Festival, all through translation. That's fascinating. What was your first thought when I read it? Mm-hmm. My first thought? And before I had said what I just said to you, but then in France I realized, oh, that isn't true. My first thought and feeling was shame, which is the core of this woman's life. Shame. You felt shame because I remembered. See, if you grow up in the, I was going to say in the olden days, but in the traditional Irish Catholic family, you know, you're, and we wouldn't be the only family, God knows. You defer to the church, without question. Mm-hmm. If you have different thoughts about how the world came to be, or whether premarital sex is good or not, you better keep them to yourself if they don't line up. Mm-hmm. And I mean that.
Yeah.
I remember my father, whom I adored, and was a lovely man, saying, "You can't have that opinion. You may not have that, but I do." No, no. So if you do that to a kid, right? A kid has an idea, and you say no. Eventually, they shut down. They don't. Their life doesn't come to an end. They just learn to abandon their own compass early.
Yeah.
And I think in Sandra's case, sure she was humiliated more than once, and just told, "Quiet, sit down. Hey, who cares? Shut up." Or, "Listen, fatty, you better marry him because nobody else is going to ask you." She just wore that cloak of, oh, sorry, she lives to please.
And in a lot of ways, people have speculated that's sort of just a byproduct of class and occupation and things like that. Would you agree that you're just boxed into a certain way sometimes?
Well, I think that certainly compounds it and solidifies it, but I do think it's much earlier.
Earlier, yeah.
Because it has to do with how you're perceived and treated as a kid. That's where you get your... You know how that is, where you suddenly have the greatest idea, and really lovely parents say, "X, good for you."
Right.
Is that what? Did you think that all by yourself? I mean, you know, there's all kinds of ways to bring up children, but just that lack of respect for a child's point of view, it's harmful. You know what I mean? Yeah. And even with parents who don't, you can't just say, "Hey, do what you want." You have to civilize your kids somehow.
Right.
But I think she came from abuse of that sort, and a pretty strong hand of it. Lives with the father. Where's mother? The woman's in her, I think she was late 40s, 50s, and the father's being called to get permission to marry them. You get and I thought Craig was great that way, and those little hints.
Yeah, that she was boxed in.
And they didn't pursue reaching out to those people because, first of all, I'm sure liability.
Yeah.
But secondly, for privacy. That woman's life.
Well, that's what I wonder. I mean...
did you see the 2020 clip?
The actual... No. I should, huh?
It's very similar to what went on.
Yeah.
She just, what she saw, she said, "I didn't see that. That didn't happen."
Right.
It absolutely didn't happen. And the guy literally saying, "But it's on the tape."
Yeah.
But I didn't watch that. I remember seeing it and then thinking, no, because I get it. I'm not being asked to play a real person, so I didn't need to.
I thought that scene, as you played it, without having seen the original or the one with the real lady, was amazing. Not only because you see that sort of denial, but also because she reverts after this, where he's basically gone after her and said, "You're nuts." It's documented. She then reverts back to the sort of the good employee, looking at I forget what exactly where are you from, how, just making pleasant conversation, which seems like that's her default position. It seemed, and I wonder. So when you read that and were playing it, did you feel sorry for her? Did you feel like do you have to feel sympathy for somebody to play somebody, or in this case, you did?
Well, if you find that you are judging a character, which if you've been doing it for long enough, you get that little signal. Because you're saying, well, it's never going to work. Or it's only going to work partly. Because you got to drop it. You got to drop the judgment and step in. Because the picture changes profoundly when you take the judgment away.
Right.
And I felt terribly sorry for her. Because I got it. Now, I got it on a smaller level. My life never, thankfully, took that turn. Right. But I know what that feels like, particularly with men. You just suddenly think, "Oh, I'm less than, for sure. I'm the second-class citizen. There's no question about it." Now, in my family growing up, and this was not meant as disrespect, the family business was not available to the women in the family, period. It just wasn't to consider. And you want to say, but don't you think that's going to land on the women in the family when they grow up? I'm second class. No question. I wasn't offered even my own family's business, but blah, blah. So I got the drift, so no need to judge. That was a lucky break for me, that I sympathized deeply with her. And the last scene, first time we shot it, it was the last scene I shot. That was heaven.
I was going to say, I hope that was...
He did that, yeah. They did it as much as possible in sequence, but we shot at a restaurant. I don't know if we were allowed to say. We shot all night long. Well, that was the other thing. For 3 nights in a row, we did all-nighters because we had to shoot in a restaurant that was closed, and so that was meant.
And that was all the restaurant scenes were done in just 3 nights.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, this was, how long was the whole shoot?
The shoot was like 16 days.
Oh my god. So the rest outside of those night shoots, what were
they built a set in Brooklyn.
So
the office.
Oh, okay. So that was where that was.
The office. Yep.
So, the counter argument to what we have been talking about is that she should have been smarter. She should have perceived it earlier. Anyone who was on the ball would have known that the police won't. You can't tell you to do this over the phone, or she should have stopped herself at some point when she saw it. But and there are people that are bringing in parallels that are obviously extreme, but they say, oh, the Nazis just following orders, or the Stanley Milgram experiment with the just shocking. What's the counter? What's the response to that? That she should have known better.
Oh, well, I can tell you, and I think this is really true. I hesitate just to make sure, because actors can make choices that aren't really the character one hopes to. It never occurred to her, once she heard the word detective, and he spoke, he was very good at it. He was masterful at assessing a human being, what their vulnerabilities were, what you needed to do. So it was like a perfect storm, meaning found someone who had not much in the way of belief in herself, lived externally to please others, abandoned her compass years ago, so far back that she probably has no memory of. You could actually challenge that. Never. And so I don't think she considered for 1 second that it wasn't a detective. People were very strong in their responses, some of them, fierce. We had Psychology Today hosted a premiere for us in New York, and one woman was just, this is like psychology people, presumably, and they love this. I mean, they tear this apart.
Yeah, sure.
But one woman said, this is an IQ issue. She's just stupid. And anyone with an IQ would know, I'm sorry, but this is an IQ issue. And an education issue. And somebody raised their hand and said, I've had a lot of education, and I can promise you, everybody in this room would have complied to some point.
Right.
And I don't think she easily did those things that were humiliating. I think it cost her. I think it's clear.
Yeah, we see her struggling with it.
But hey, that's what I've been told to do, and I don't think it ever occurred to her she had. Here she is saying, well, corporate requires that you have, right? Now, first of all, strip searching is against the law.
Of course.
There's no policy but she's reaching for any kind of, and this is the other thing. She thinks that the manager, her
is with the detective.
Is on the other line,
right.
and he assures me that you will step up.
Right.
So, I didn't quite, never at one point, I'll tell you this honestly, did I feel that I unable to play it.
Right.
Where I had to leap.
It was, yeah.
It just made tremendous sense to me.
Now this, I suspect, well, I don't want to say what I suspect. I think, is there any validity to the conspiracy theory that's sort of out there a little bit that she, because of that earlier incident where we see with the sex thing where she had been sort of insulted by Becky, that maybe she was less inclined to question things, because she was resentful of it. I don't see
that never landed for me.
Yeah,
and people did bring that up. Don't you think that? I think she's so used to having her feelings hurt, and so used to being dismissed that it hurts her. I think, but I don't think because again, she has what people who are. I suppose that couldn't come out anyway, but people who are humiliated and think so little of themselves, think too little of themselves to exact revenge.
Right, they be vengeful.
Do you know what I mean? I don't think it occurred to her. I don't think that's who she is by nature.
Yeah, I didn't see much evidence for that, but
no,
it's been discussed a little bit, so I thought
Yeah. I mean, I guess from an analytical point of view, you could say it, but I think if you then put it in the whole body and soul, it didn't make sense to me.
So, I promise we're winding down, but I just
Sweetheart,
love this.
Whatever you like, this is such a pleasure. I love doing the film.
It's fun. Well, one of the things that I think people have remarked upon is that on the part of your character, there's not a ton of dialogue, and so a lot of your acting is conveyed through, but a lot of your acting is conveyed through, or what we know about Sandra is conveyed through posture and facial expressions and voice and all of that, and that's really in terms of movie acting, that's going back to the roots of obviously that's all they had in the silent era, and it's and a lot of people see that as the purest form of movie acting.
Oh,
and I just wonder what you did you do things differently physically or with your voice or your posture, anything that supported the who this character was, conveyed that on top of what you were saying.
Never consciously.
I guess the uniform certainly.
Well, the uniform, and plus, I have enough in common with, I'm sure she thinks, oh, if I could just lose that 20 pounds. So I got what that felt like.
Right.
And you're always hiding in some respects.
Right.
You're always trying to make yourself look not so big around the middle. You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing.
Sure.
But no, I'm just grateful, I guess, that the milieu made sense to me, so I could stay in it.
Mm-hmm.
And just tried to focus on what was in front of me. That's a great thing about this schedule, too. Actors will stab me later for this, but I mean, we're sitting on camera boxes
right.
in the little tiny alleyway. You know what I mean? And you were waiting for your scene to come up. These were long days and difficult days, and not a lot of time to overthink.
Right.
Just stay in the room, stay with the person you're acting with. Craig is phenomenal, and so that crew is so great. You hear that a lot, but they're so remarkable because they create that atmosphere
right.
where you are. And when you have that, you can do anything because you're not distracted by, well, if I say it, you just, let's get this done, this scene. And I loved it, and I loved the actors, So no, I didn't consciously do anything, frankly.
That was interesting. So now it's done. You go to Sundance, and this was quite a experience from what I understand. Your first time there, and
yeah.
What can you, for people who have not heard the good, the bad, and the ugly, what happened?
Well, first of all, Sundance. You've been to Sundance.
Actually not. That's the one
sweetheart.
I know.
I'm not saying you've got to get there.
Yeah.
I'd go in the off season,
right.
personally, because it's a small western
right.
skiing town, and then it turns into Hollywood.
Right.
And I've never seen the likes, I'm telling you, in my life. With fans, with people wearing, in advertisement, wearing things we're going, what is that? Like dyed furs and things.
Right.
It's a complete zoo. And film fanatics, I can't even begin to tell you. It's just and then you're going from interview to interview, new for me. And no one thinks that I'm the star of the film. Not that I'm the star of the film. Everybody who's in it is,
No, but you're pretty prominent there.
Well, I guess I would say, it is an ensemble, but I have more than 2 lines. You know what I'm saying? So, but they always thought, and Dreamer, who's lovely. First of all, she's a wonderful actress, and she's a knockout.
Yeah.
She's the nicest, sweetest person there is.
It's good to hear.
Loved her. And we would just sit and talk, because, I just was crazy about her. That's another good thing. You don't go off to your trailer.
Yeah, if you like
you
the
sit
people.
down next to...
Yeah.
Well, even if you do, there was no trailer.
Right.
It was only cold, so you're sitting,
right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Actors love to escape, let me tell you. When it gets rough, you're like, oh, I'll just be back. I'll be back.
Right.
But she's just a great girl. But everyone looks at her, she looks like a movie star. Do you know what I mean? And she is one, and she's got a show coming.
Yep.
So are you her manager? I was like,
oh, Jesus.
And that kind of, I thought, no, Ann, because Craig the doll warned me.
Yeah.
This is probably going to happen. Because they get, a lot of those, do you know about those gifting things and everything?
I know they exist, and I know that,
I reminded myself from that's a whole other thing. And then you have to say to yourself, look, Ann, you have everything you need. Don't you go marching in and saying, just to keep your head on, because you could go cuckoo.
Well, plus correct me if I'm wrong, but for all the people that are congregating there at Sundance, there's a chunk of them that actually don't see the movie before they try to interview you or before they do other things. Like, they don't... so maybe that's part of the reason why they are making stupid comments like that.
Well, yeah. The other thing is we hadn't talked about the film a whole lot as a group. When we first started to do how you do the EK, what's it called? Press?
Oh, EKT or something.
Something like that. So you try to. And Craig is first of all, he's very funny, but you start to talk about the film. So we're trying to do that. We're in the producer's house, or we're in Craig's house. This is before Sundance. So you start to say something, then you go, ooh, let me just try that one again, which is hilarious. But then you have to get your...
You get talking points, yeah.
Yeah, you have to figure out what is the film about. Because, people would say, did you realize it was going to have this effect on people? And I said, well, no, because actors start with the individual.
Right.
And you stay with the individual.
But the effect that it had, so you go to your first screening.
Okay, so here we are. It's snowing like crazy.
Right.
And I had never seen the film except on a computer this big, because I was too afraid to see it.
Right.
I watched it like this. So I thought, okay, and this great big old screen, and it was fascinating. It was full, and it's a beautiful experience watching a film, especially when you're not going, oh, what was I thinking? Because I had done it long enough before. So I was very involved in the story. I was watching closely, and it was ending, and somebody started screaming, a woman. And she said, Sundance is, literally said, Sundance is better than this. Violence against women is not entertainment. And she was furious and raging. And then somebody else started yelling. And I thought for a minute, what is going on? I literally didn't know what was happening. So the guy at the front who was running this thing was right on the ball. He goes, listen, this is not a free-for-all.
Yeah.
If you have a question, And some guy, so we all go up. We're kind of stunned. And we're all standing there with our little microphones. And some guy started to talk about Dreama in a sexual way.
As if he had been titillated by the...
Or was that the point? Or put it in that direction.
Right.
Which is so far away. So again, I can think, where are we? This is so bizarre. Now, she's a young woman, you know. And I mean, if you say that to me, I was like, bring it on. You know, I gotta be, but you felt for her, you know. She felt sort of suddenly in the spotlight in a way that went...
How did she handle it?
Well, she stayed quiet.
Right.
Because she didn't know what to say. Right. But then wonderful Ashley, she plays the assistant. She's so good. Yeah. She got right on it. She didn't miss a beat. She said, listen, if this is the kind of thing that brings you pleasure, to see a woman without agency, you need to get some help. Yeah. But then you realize this poor guy, I felt sorry for him and I felt sorry for that woman, because this film triggers people. Yeah. And I thought, oh no, she's had a circumstance in which she was, and she hasn't, that's the thing. It triggers people and they speak before they think. I guess we all do that. You hope to kind of bring that number down as you get older. Right. But this guy was saying, when you say, honey, don't talk anymore. Just don't speak. Because you're embarrassing yourself. Right. And you don't even mean to be. Mm-hmm. You've been triggered and people were just like flashing, saying things. So we were trying to sort of talk it down. And I remember saying to the woman, I don't know where you are in the back. I hope that you are here still. But really, we were telling a story, and part of it is not exploiting, you know.
And you didn't make up what happened either. It happened.
Yeah, it happened. Exactly. But then she was long gone. But it was thrilling in its way that it should have such a response. And I didn't know that, you know, controversy is like a really good thing.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, everybody knows what compliance is now.
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of fabulous.
And I think it did start what is now only growing, which is, you know, this sense that, first of all, people should see the movie, but also a lot of people who do see the movie come away and they say, you know, even though you have been doing this for a long time and at a very high level, that it's almost like a revelation for them that you're so good in it. And I just wonder, when you see things like that, you know, or when you start to hear these kinds of things and the awards buzz and all of this stuff, is it exciting? Is it weird? Is it, you know, what do you make of it? And has it had an effect already on opportunities or things that are coming?
It's so thrilling to me and exciting because it's like magic or something. Right. When I first, someone alerted me to this, it's just not a world I've lived in, you know? It's like a sort of dream come true, really. I mean, and I'm old enough where I'm not losing my mind or anything. Do you know what I mean by that? Right. I got kids, I got to get on with it. I just find it so lovely. I don't know, does that sound pathetic?
Not
I mean,
at
it's just
all.
fantastic. And you just want it to happen, you know? I was totally shocked by it. You know, you don't have a perspective on your performance. I don't. I was just, what? I was happy the director liked the cut when he was doing the work.
Right.
And he'd say, yeah, it's looking good. I'd be like, yes. But it's just thrilling, you know, because think of all the work people do. Actors work all the time, and then you do the best you can and you go home. And when something like this happens, I find it just remarkable and great and fun and thanks. You know, that's what you want to say. Like I say,
right.
Thank you so much. And I've gotten a few, let's see, what's the word? I think a few more offers.
Mm-hmm.
Not, you know, that hasn't gone into insanity.
Not yet.
I don't mind insanity.
Right,
That'll be fine.
Right.
Come close on things that maybe I wouldn't have gotten in the room on,
Mm-hmm.
let's say,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
auditions and things. But it's been just amazing. And, you know, Magnolia's, they're very nice people. And it's a small film company, so, you know, they don't have the resources to mount a campaign and things, you know, that's not what they do. So people have been saying to me, okay, you got to get busy. I was like, what? How? But people have stepped in and helped, and Magnolia's helping, and, you know, we're going to... So it's been very exciting.
Well, very deserved, and I hope it keeps being fun, and I really appreciate you doing this. So,
It's been my entire pleasure. You're lovely. Thank you.
Too.
Thank you so much.